If it's a little bit not so sharp, that's what the sharpening will do, is it's going to sharpen that image. It's going to fix that unclarity. But if it's really out of focus and really blurry, no, we can't reclaim that. Okay, so we're not even really in the Photoshop program yet. So we're now going to say open image. And we now have our image, and on the left-hand side here are a whole bunch of different tools. On the right-hand side, we have our layer palette, and our history palette, and our actions palette. You will become familiar with these as we go forward. So now that we have an image that's been, the exposure has been adjusted, the sharpening has been adjusted to some degree, what other changes might we make to this image?
Can I have a clarification first?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not familiar at all with Photoshop, and I think that you are in Photoshop. Where are you now?
Now we're in Photoshop, and RAW is really a software inside of Photoshop. It's a separate item inside of Photoshop. So, and it was designed to work not with a JPEG image, but with RAW images specifically. So it's a RAW editor. Okay, so what other things might we want to do to this image? Crop it, remove some of the water, is that what you were? Crop it up, yeah, I would agree. And see how our bear is slightly off center? This is almost a portrait shot, right? It's a portrait of a bear. So we can crop it. And so this tool right here is our crop tool. And I can come in and click and drag and select that area and say okay. And that is now our cropped image. And one of the things I would likely do is I'm clicking on a magnifying glass. So I can zoom in here.
Wow.
You can see that even though this was late at night, that we have a pretty sharp image. You can now see that detail in the hair, and his hair was wet because he was swimming. And you see how we have a highlight in the eye at the top? It's not very distinct, and we're going to make that just a little bit more distinct.
And what tool are you using?
There's a number of ways of doing this, but I'm going to actually use the Paintbrush Tool right now. And I'm just going to, instead of having that highlight, which runs from here to here, you see that? A little bit lighter. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one dot right there. And that's too big. I didn't like that. It's too big. So I'm going to click on my History tab here. And watch when I click on the item above it, it goes away. So any change that you make, you can undo that change. So on my keyboard, there's a shortcut. I'll show you first here. I can make the tool big. I can make the tool small. So I'm going to make it quite small. I just want it to be a very unnoticeable spot dot. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on this image here. And now we come back out. And now it's almost imperceptible, that dot. But through generations and generations, we have learned that that sparkle in the eye is there, and it makes us appear that the image is more clear. So let's save that.
How did it come out to be blank?
I can show you. You have a color palette, and you can select any color. But I'll show you that in 1 second here. So now I'm going to rename this photo. Okay, important. I'm just going to call this the image number 8440, and I'm going to say 2. Okay, and I'm going to save it. And I'm going to close this image, and we can go back here, and let's go to back to the original. And since I made some adjustments, it has those adjustments included in the image. But one of the beauties of RAWs, and you cannot do this with a JPEG image, is I can undo everything I've done. Even though I made a mistake, an egregious mistake. I can undo everything. All I'm going to do is click on this, and I'm going to say camera raw defaults. Boom, we're right back to where we started. So that's one of the beauties of RAW. Let's take a look at these two images now. Okay, so we have the original image on the left, dark and off to the side, and then the corrected image on the right. Okay, let's look at some other, and I promised that there would be a sequence, and here we could have adjusted. In fact, let's do it real quick. I'm going to highlight all the images that have the same anomaly. Okay, so there's what, seven images. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say open camera raw, and it brings all the images here on the left, and I'm going to say select all. So now when I make this adjustment to go from midnight to what would be, maybe evening time in terms of light, and do these adjustments here, it's going to, as you can see, it's going to affect all of them. And so let's just leave it at that, and I will say done, and you can see that it's changed all those images, and now we can come back. All right, so here's the first image when the bear is coming. We metered, or motored rather, some 300 yards ahead of the Kodiak bear so that he would come to us. He was coming along the coastline looking for a snack, and so we wanted him to come toward us. And so now he smells us. He probably does not see us clearly. He sees something. He doesn't know. They have really poor eyesight. So he sees us. He wades down into the water. This is a young bear here. He stands up. You can see the water dripping off his paws. He goes to a rock and he starts wading out deeper into the water. And it was at this point, I'm looking through my 100 to 400 millimeter lens, and now I can see, oh, look at the claws on this guy. And I wish you could see what's on my screen a little bit better, because the rippling muscles Arnold Schwarzenegger would be jealous of. I mean, the power of these animals is tremendous. So here he was swimming a little bit, and then he stood up to get a better view, and now he's swimming closer, and this was near the closest distance there. Photos tell such wonderful stories. Okay, let's. This one takes a little bit of time. I've selected a difficult image. I actually showed you this image earlier, but I've selected a difficult image to retouch. The obvious comments that we might make are what? What would we do to improve this image? Get rid of the people that are kind of distracting our attention, and a few other things. So let's work on that first. And this is hard because behind this woman here, we have the paw and leg of the Sphinx, and then we have the ground. And here we have the hindquarters of the Sphinx behind her head, and then we have the ground, and then we have an area that they're sitting on. So let me just work with this. I'm going to click on the magnification tool so I can zoom into the area that I want to work on. And slowly but surely, I'm going to click on what's called the clone tool. So you can see that my clone tool has brought up a brush. I can change to any number of different brushes here in my brush palette. But I'm going to now resize this clone tool to something that is appropriate for what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to click on an area here. I'm going to press my Alt key on my computer, probably your Control on a Mac. I'm going to click on this spot right here, just arbitrarily, and now I'm going to move it over to the area that I want to clone, and I'm going to clone through it. Okay? And as I do this, you see here's a little remnant right here. Okay, I can just, boop, and that goes away. And you can take your time to do just a brilliant job with this. Today we're going to do a rather fast job. And one of the things you may have noticed is we're getting a repeating pattern. See this, these bricks here? That's a repeating pattern because I haven't moved my original Alt-click area. So I could Alt-click in a different spot, right here, and I could go a different direction and it'll change that pattern up. So now we have the most difficult spot, in between these two areas here. So over here, I have a brush.
Why don't you just crop it up so we don't see that?
It would take too much of the image away. If we were to crop it all the way up to this woman's head here.
No, I meant just the way.
You know, see, it'd be okay, but it would lose something. So, coming back, don't crop, coming back to our spot here. So now we're at the difficult part in our correction. And I'm going here to select a tool, and in this tool, the little flyout box comes out that says lasso tool, polygon lasso tool, and magnetic lasso tool. So all of these have a purpose. I'm going to select the middle one, the polygon tool, and I'm going to click right here, and it brings a line. Can you see that line? It's attached to where my point was. And I'm going to move it to the end, right there. And I'm going to click there. And so we now have created an area here that we want to work within. Okay? So now I can finish this off by clicking on my clone tool again, coming in here and just going whoop, and it beautifully does not intrude upon the area to the bottom. How do we do the area in the bottom? Well, we go to select inverse. Now it's selected the exact opposite of what our original selection was.